The second his fingers touched hers, he felt it, the tremble. Not hesitation, not fear, something deeper, something that made his chest tighten before his mind could even catch up. Her eyes were shining, not with certainty, but with the fragile kind of courage people borrow when they're about to risk their heart. And then she leaned closer, her voice barely surviving the distance between them. I think I'm falling for you. If you believe every story hides a lesson, take a second right now, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. You never know which story might stay with you long after it ends. The cafe was warm, almost too warm, the kind of place where time softened at the edges. Outside, the evening pressed its cold face against the glass, but inside, everything felt suspended, like the world had paused just for this moment. The quiet ticking of a wall clock hung in the background, steady and indifferent, marking time that suddenly felt too loud for what was happening between them. He hadn't planned for this. He had planned for coffee. Maybe a polite conversation, a few careful smiles, the kind of meeting people arrange when life has already taken too much from them, and they're unsure how to start again. He was a single father, his life measured in school drop-offs, late-night fevers, half-finished dinners, and silent promises made beside a sleeping child. Love, for him, had become something distant, like a photograph left in a drawer too long. But she wasn't distant. She was right there, her hands in his, her voice breaking through all the walls he had spent years building. She didn't look perfect. Her hair was slightly out of place, her smile uneven, her eyes carrying stories she hadn't told yet. But there was something real about her, something that didn't ask for anything except honesty. And that was exactly what terrified him, because honesty meant admitting that he had started to feel it too. It had crept in slowly. The way she listened, not just to his words, but to the pauses between them. The way she never rushed him when he spoke about his child, as if she understood that every sentence carried weight. The way she laughed, not loudly, but fully, like she wasn't afraid of being seen. But love, for him, wasn't simple anymore. It came with conditions, with responsibilities, with the quiet fear of losing again. He looked at her, really looked this time, and in that moment, he saw more than just the woman sitting across from him. He saw possibility, and risk, and something dangerously close to hope. His grip on her hands tightened slightly, not to hold her in place, but as if grounding himself in reality. His mind raced, pulling him back to nights spent alone, to promises he had made to never let anyone come close enough to break him again, to the small voice of his child calling him, Dad, in the dark, trusting him to always be there. And then, something shifted. Not outside, not in the room, inside him, because love doesn't ask if you're ready. It just arrives, quietly, stubbornly, and refuses to leave. He exhaled slowly, like a man stepping into unfamiliar water, unsure of the depth. And then he said it. Not perfectly, not poetically, just honestly. He told her that he was scared, that his life wasn't simple, that loving him meant loving the chaos, the responsibility, the sleepless nights, the invisible scars. He told her that he didn't know if he could do this right, but he knew he didn't want to walk away. And for a second, the world seemed to hold its breath. Her expression didn't change dramatically. There were no grand gestures, no sudden tears. Just a quiet understanding settling over her face, like she had been waiting not for perfect words, but for real ones. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere, someone laughed. The clock kept ticking, but inside that small space between them, something fragile and powerful took shape. Not certainty, not a promise, something more honest than both. A beginning. Before we reach the end, pause here for a moment, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been afraid to feel something real, even when you knew it mattered? Because what happened next wasn't loud or dramatic. There was no music swelling, no perfect resolution tying everything together. Just two people sitting across from each other, holding on to something they didn't fully understand, but didn't want to lose. And maybe that's what made it real. Maybe love isn't about knowing where it leads. Maybe it's about staying, even when you don't. If this story made you feel something, anything at all, don't scroll away silently. Like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the quietest stories leave the deepest echoes.